One of the biggest topics of discussion for accountants at the moment is making the move from traditional compliance services to more value-added services such as advisory work. In a talk at Xerocon Brisbane, our head of product, Jody Lee Manuel, spoke about this transition as a move from serving as a map for clients to a full-on tour guide. As she said, your clients may think they know the way, but you're fluent in the lay of the land. You know the usual pitfalls that can be avoided, the most efficient routes, the true gems that are easily missed. As an accountant, you are well equipped to guide your clients down the best path for their business. Today, we are joined by Jason Robinson, the Director of Future Advisory and the co-host of the Numbers Game podcast, to discuss this important topic. As a CPA accredited tax accountant and the co-founder of Future Advisory, Jason's passion is to guide individuals and SMEs through a maze of financial options. He gets to the core of the bigger picture about what you, as a business owner and an individual, want to achieve with your life, and he maps out a personalized tax strategy that will assist you in realizing your personal and business success. We'll be chatting with Jason about how he's made the transition to offering advisory services, along with what worked well and what didn't, so that you can take this next step in your practice. Jason, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really an honor to have you here today.
Thank you. Great to be here. It's always love working with Xero and Sift and the whole team. So yeah, anytime I can have a chat, more than happy.
We might get you more than once then. So we've given you a pretty formal introduction, but please tell us a little bit more about yourself. What might people be surprised to learn about you?
Look, all the stuff in the introduction, obviously a co-founder and director of Future Advisory, tax accounting, small business, advisory. Ultimately, like a lot of accounting firms out there, we just want to work with clients to help them have a better life. But beyond day-to-day, what I do at Future Advisory, obviously there's the podcast, The Numbers Game, or feel like I'm always in front of a computer screen with a microphone or a webinar of some sort. I do some work with Ignition, the great people at Ignition. And then, I think through my time on XPAC with Xero, has just given me a wealth of experience around dealing with the accounting profession. And, just to throw one more thing in the mix, I'm also the chair of the Victorian CPA Public Practice Committee. Just love throwing extra things there to keep myself busy, that's for sure.
It's really good. And how did you find your way into accounting? Because I've learned in my career that very few people actually started at 6 years old trying to become accountants. That was no one's original plan. We sort of all find our way there in some way or another.
Yeah, great question. And you know what, to be honest, I was one of those people that was definitely not the kid that, loved numbers and wanted to be an accountant or thought that, I wanted to do something in that space. I often, this is one of my answers to that question of, what's something unique or weird? And, one of the things that, one of those things that is unique is I actually wanted to be a police officer, which I think so weird and bizarre to think back now that, like even saying that, like me as a police officer, what was I thinking? But, I wanted to help people. I think that was obvious. And for some reason, you see the ads of I don't know, it was about time off or being physical or on your feet or moving around. There was just something that was there. And I'd already started my accounting degree. It was one of those things that coming out of high school, again, I think it's weird that 17, 18-year-olds need to make a decision what they want to do with the rest of their life. And I was good at math, good at English, and I'd excelled at business management. In year 11, I did year 12 business management here in Australia. And, the careers advisor, which fortunately the careers advisor existed, was like, well, just go to university and study business. You seem to have a knack for business, and then you'll be able to choose your major, and suggested accounting would be one that would work out well. And again, I was 3 or 4 years into that and decided being a police officer was the way to go. And my business partner today, he was my crew trainer at McDonald's when I was 14 years old. And we still work together. How old am I? 24 years later, he and I are still working together. So he hasn't killed me yet. He's put up with me for that long. But he was the one who said, he's like, mate, why would you go and be a police officer? If you've got the opportunity to try accounting, you should be an accountant. And he'd already got me a job. It was just a formality to rock up and do a job interview. And it was in the job interview that the questions were, what footy team did I go for? Or what did I enjoy doing on the weekend? It was this human interview where there was no questions about data entry into a computer or sorting through receipts. And it very much felt like, hang on, maybe this is a life that I could get into where it was about people and connections and humans and talking about things that you really enjoy doing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It was a bit of a meander. Police officer, go find yourself to becoming an accountant, and now you have a business with your McDonald's crew trainer from age 14, and you guys
Yeah.
provide mostly advisory services, or I mean, it's in the name. A lot of advisory services. Let's rather phrase it
Yeah,
like
and
that.
you know what? It's one of those things. I mean, the name from a branding perspective, it's great branding, great name, and it was something that we coined, we rebranded and renamed 5 years ago after being in the industry for 5 years before that as another firm. And I think when we chose the name, it wasn't necessarily that we were ready 5 years ago to be just advisory. And I don't think
Mm,
any good accounting firm that is looking after clients has to be
mm.
great at compliance first. So
Agreed.
while we do want to be doing more advisory, we do want to help more clients with advisory. It all starts for us with having great compliance, good systems and processes around compliance. And you've got to underpin the foundation of great advisory with great numbers. And that generally comes from if you're nailing the compliance, lodging things on time, reconciling files really well, and have great deep relationships with your clients around
Mm.
timing and expectations. You nail those fundamentals, advisory is like a natural flow on from that, where it becomes possible to have conversations about what's happening in a client's business because you know it so well.
Yes, no, I fully agree with that. I think regardless of the business you're in or the industry you're in, if you're putting garbage into whatever you're going to try and do with it, you're getting garbage out. You can't really
Mhm.
offer value if you don't get the basics right. But I mean, we have the basics right now in this compliance situation. What value do you actually see in providing advisory services? Why does someone need it?
Yeah, look, I think the value in advisory services really comes down to again that purpose of why we exist. We exist to help people have a better future. We exist to help people have better businesses, which all kind of ties into that. And often, if you're just giving someone a tax return or their, quarterly compliance to pay their taxes that are due, depending on, what you're lodging and when, if it's just pure compliance, the value add on top of that of where are people going with their business, where they want to get to, do they want to sell, are they growing a business to hand down in family, do they have a business to have more time to spend with their family, like whatever that driver is, generally you can work that back into the value proposition of why work together.
Mm,
Sure, one element of that is get rid of the compliance because lodging taxes stresses me out. But it's such a beautiful relationship to then take that further and say, well, since we know so much about your business, why don't you
mm,
let us help you achieve more? Like, would you like
mm,
to make more money? Does your
mm,
business stress you out? Are there things that you need help with to get you to the next level? And often business ownership can be quite lonely. And having an accountability partner, a coach, an advisor, a virtual CFO, I mean, name it whatever you will. It's that advisory piece that allows you to take that relationship to the next level. And let's face it, I mean, deeper relationships also means that clients will stay around longer. They trust you, you know so much about them and their business. And if they're feeling the value of all of the extra things you're helping them with in business, they're going to
mm.
want to hang around. And often, what good firms are doing these days is turning that into recurring, predictable revenue, which,
Mm.
I mean, I think that's great. That subscription style model of, pay X dollars per month. And here's a bunch of services we'll do for you. It might be a KPI dashboard, monthly management reports, and an accountability session where you get in a room and talk to them about their business.
Yes. I love that. I think humans are built for connection, and
Mm.
we are finding ourselves back to this almost basic human interaction where we crave the relationship so much. We want to know our butcher and we want to know our greengrocer, and we also want to know our accountant because we can trust people if we know them.
Yep.
And if you are providing advisory services, something that's actually pretty intimate in a business, right? It's I'm
Yeah.
literally going
Oh,
to
big
tell
time.
you what to do with your cash, so that you do not go under or so that you prosper. You need to build that relationship.
Yep.
And as you said, it can turn into a really nice recurring revenue stream. But oh, is there any reason for any firm to be uncertain about offering advisory services? Because I think you have sold it so well. Well,
Yeah,
it's
look,
yeah,
I
brilliant.
think the overwhelm can be where to start. And then
Mm,
also, the thought process of, maybe I can't offer advisory. I don't have experience in it. Yeah. And it is. I mean, like a lot of things that overwhelm. There is so much technology, so many apps, so many numbers, so many things that you could get into that the fear of getting it wrong is a big barrier. So I think what's most important for anyone that's in practice, running an accounting business or a bookkeeping business, and you're thinking, well, I do all these things, I do it really well. And that may be a lot of compliance based. It's
Mm,
just that finding that next thing that you can sink your teeth into and make it, make it your own. And, it might be something, and not to say cash flow forecasting is simple, but one of the ones where we wanted to dip our toe in the water was the question that you can ask a client was, how much money do you think you'll have in the bank in 3 months, 90 days? And the question's often, oh, geez, not sure. It's always something on the back of my mind that I'm stressed about or concerned about. And go, well, what if we work together and modeled just a 90-day or 180-day cash flow forecast, and we'll, dump out your P&L, we'll drag it forward, we'll punch in some analysis and have a bit of a chat about your business.
yeah.
And just that half hour, 1 hour session where, you're talking, what do you reckon is going to come in next month? Or what about this? When will you pay this bill? Okay, don't forget you got your bill here for that for the ATO. You've got to pay this tax bill. And then all of a sudden, dumping that out and just having an interactive session with a client, you're building your own confidence yourself because you know these numbers, you know how to do it yourself. And often you're probably doing it for your own business, but never then rolled it out with other people's business. So I'd say pick something simple, pick something that's a service that you can start to explore. And even if you pick a couple of your best clients and offer it to them, at a not necessarily a reduced rate, but offer it to them and just go, can I work with you on this? I'd love to trial a new service I'm offering and love your feedback. And that's a real way to then learn pain points of a client because you're getting again deep into their numbers, deep into that relationship. You're talking to them about, growth planning. What are the things that stress them out? What are the upcoming things in 90, 30, 60, 90 days? And then often you can build from that. Things will uncover there where it's like, well, I was thinking about hiring, but I'm unsure whether that's a good idea. Oh, okay. Well, we were doing a 90-day cash flow plan and now I'm being asked for a strategy session because the client's thinking about hiring. So yeah, I think you can really expand on, where to start and then just be conscious that you may be asked to broaden your horizons. And if it's not for you and you don't feel comfortable, say, you know what, let's bring somebody else in and partner with another local business that may be offering different services that are out of your wheelhouse. Whether it's mergers and acquisitions, whether it's virtual CFO. You don't have to do everything, but at the same time, if you have an interest in advisory and you want to expand your skill set, I'd be saying start doing courses, start meeting and mingling with other local businesses that are doing it well. Because if there's one thing that I think the accounting and bookkeeping space does well, it's helping each other lift. We all want to help each other do better in business. And I think that's a great kind of avenue to start is talk to other peers in the profession.
Yeah, it's a very friendly industry. It's a very friendly profession. Everyone
Very.
is actually, because I think there's so much work and so much to get done. And most accountants and bookkeepers in that space, the passion is really for helping the small business. And there are lots of small businesses. And the more small businesses we have, the more we will have, it's sort
Mm-hmm.
of that snowball effect. So it is really always a very good idea to learn from your peers and help each
100%.
other. I get that. It makes complete sense. I mean, now we have the compliance down. We're really good at doing all the books. And our team at our own firm is very comfortable with that. How did you enable that shift in your larger team to say, listen, we're actually going beyond compliance? Yes, compliance is very important because if we don't get that right and our data quality is wrong, everything will be a mess. But how did you shift the mindsets?
Ah, good, great question. I think it's an ongoing conversation, an ongoing piece where it's having great goals and vision
Mm,
around why you exist and what you do, and making sure the team are really educated on our own mission, vision, and values.
yeah.
So if our own team members around us and ourselves always talk about why we exist and what we're doing, and also who we work really well with, I think often the phone will ring and someone will want to work with us, but sometimes you get that kind of gut feeling of, oh, geez, like, I don't know if we should work with them. Like, do we have the skills? Are they in the right professional industry that we work really well with? And if they're not, it's being comfortable and being okay to say no. And I think that really early on is something that we didn't do well. We didn't know when to say no. So we onboarded clients from all different shapes and sizes, big and small, different industries. And, we're at a point now where we probably have too many businesses across a variety of industries and professions. And we go, there's some that we work really well with and we all get really excited. And there's others where we go, "Oh, like, it shouldn't feel like a chore. It should feel good to come to work and work on a particular client's work. And you almost know when it's not feeling good that maybe it's the wrong fit for our firm and the wrong fit for our team. But yeah, communication really early on, like of how we do it. So, as you touched on, clean and reliable data, strong bookkeeping processes, making sure we're nailing the dates of compliance when things need to be lodged, the communication with the client as well as the communication internally. These are all things that are, paramount to be able to set up for success to then roll into more of the advisory services.
Okay. Very, very good advice. You mentioned the industry split and very broad or across industries, and I think that is something that happens very early on in most firms' life cycle. You're actually so desperate to get off the ground. Desperate might be the wrong word, but I mean when you're starting a business, when you're starting any
Desperate. If
form
you had a
of
dollar,
firm,
if you had a dollar, I'd take you. So all good.
that's the thing.
Desperate's an okay word to use.
We'll use it then. You're so desperate for the work that you just onboard anyone who needs the
Mhm.
service. And then it actually becomes really hard to sometimes get rid of those legacy clients. And I'm not saying that you
Mhm.
should, but how does having customers or clients, depending on what you're doing in different industries and sectors, actually affect your workflow? And how do you then split them up to sort of make your business efficient?
Yep. This is a more recent exercise we went through, but it was a bit of a discovery as to who do we work well with and what services do they use in our business. So, having a bookkeeping, accounting, and advisory kind of split. And, I think it's called the Pareto principle. 20% of our clients were making up 80% of our revenue. And, think about it in numbers. It was something like, as I said, 500 business groups. There was 180 business groups that made up 80% of the revenue. And then there was 320 businesses that were, emailing, calling, messaging, I want my work, making up 20% of the revenue. So that was one thing, was to understand our revenue mix before even then diving into specific industries. And then we looked at, of that top 180, even went a little bit, more granular and okay, what's common about the top 180 that makes them such high value revenue and great profitability? And most of them use some bookkeeping services, were in our accounting, and had an element of advisory. So there was a, kind of, I guess if you call it small, medium, large, or, the compliance were the 320 clients, mostly compliance only. And then the ones that were moving up in the value chain were using bookkeeping and advisory services. So you can see, from a value perspective, how much more value was involved if we controlled the whole kind of the whole chain of the services that we're offering. So it went compliance and then sold into bookkeeping, then sold into more of the light advisory and then full strategic advisory. And then from a then who we worked well with, we then went even further with that. And as I said, this is only recent. We're a 5-year-old firm and then, been around in business for 10 years. And to actually do this exercise was so eye-opening and almost like, yeah, enlightening. And I'd recommend it for anyone out there who hasn't done a deep dive or analysis on their own client mix. But we found that the most successful businesses we worked with were in the trade and construction, were professional services, or e-commerce and online. And then we had, Greg, my business partner, he loves the trade and construction space. I love e-commerce and online business. And then professional services, our whole team, we are professional services. We're essentially either selling time for money or trading off a service. And as a professional services business, we kind of get how to talk to other professional services. So it just kind of made a lot of sense. And then it allowed us to roll out an exercise with the team that was to ask, we didn't tell them what we're doing. We had an annual strategic planning day and we said to our team, come to the meeting with a full day workshop, but bring a list of your 3 favorite clients you work with and why. We didn't ask them based on money or based on anything. It was just your 3 favorite clients and why. And all of the clients that were identified, that wasn't about money. It was about relationship and connection and how they work together and communication and, getting a message on their birthday or, these really nice, human connection things. But the correlation ended up being, of all of the clients that the team wrote down, they were in our top 100 fee paying clients. So, and then, when you ask a team member, which client shouldn't we be working with? They're not those top ones that have deep relationships. They're the ones at the bottom that don't reply to emails, don't answer phone calls, but then all of a sudden want you to drop everything when they want something done. So
Yes.
yeah, it's opened it up, the client segmentation based on, fees, industry, and what services they use. Now, all of a sudden, we can now roll forward and go, okay, well, what does an avatar or an ideal client look like for us? And how do we get really strict on who we onboard and who we don't?
Mm. I'm having such a laugh because I think it's such a universal problem. The people you like are the people who already pay you. You don't need to go look at the books. It's the same group. And
Yeah.
I never know how it works, why it works out like that. But you get those ones who just they waste your time, really.
Mm.
If there's no other way to say it, they waste your
Yeah.
time. So you
Yeah.
were saying you're very strict about who you onboard, which I think is a great principle and a great policy. But how do you do that? How do you understand that I'm going to get these people onboarded? They're small now, but they're going to be larger later or bigger, or I see value in the relationship. I can
Yeah.
graduate them from pure compliance to
Hmm.
advisory. I'm going to build a relationship with them that I enjoy. How do you do that?
Yeah. Great. Look, it comes down to culture and growth aspiration and understanding that up front. So we've built out a whole process around it where we use an onboarding questionnaire. So,
Mm,
a particular person might sign up on our website or call the phone and say, I want a meeting, I want to become a client. And it's cool. But there's some barriers in place. If you want to be a client with Future Advisory, we're going to send you a pre-discovery call questionnaire. And there's 10 questions and you've got to go and fill it in. Now, step one is if they don't fill in that questionnaire, the phone call shouldn't happen. Why should we waste our time jumping on a discovery call if that particular person couldn't invest in
mm,
answering a questionnaire that was going to streamline the conversation? And part of that questionnaire is, are you interested in growing, or what are your future aspirations for your business? And if the potential signups aren't interested in growing, they don't want anything beyond the ordinary, essentially straight away it's like, well, maybe we're not right for working together because we want to grow with you and we want to take you further with our services. And if that doesn't align and you just want a tax return, then maybe go and see so and so. And there's a neat way to refer to a few other local businesses that would be interested in that work. But
mm,
ultimately, yeah, having a really strong process around a questionnaire, then matching that to who you should work with, then being able to flow into a quote system to be able to make
mm,
sure that they understand your fees up front and then there's going to be no surprises down the track. But that questionnaire has been a game changer because then you go into the meeting straight away and go, cool, hey, I've looked at your answers. Here's some of the things that we need to talk about. And you can cherry pick
mm,
and pinpoint, those areas to
mm,
focus on while you've got a short amount of time to invest in a discovery call and then flow on from there.
mm. Oh, I love that. I think it boils down to the same principle as not getting up when your alarm sounds. You failed at the first thing. You want to be a client of our firm, but you can't even fill in a 10 questionnaire. That
Mm,
should probably take you 15 minutes max. How should we
yeah.
start building the relationship? It makes complete sense. But
Yeah.
the thing that you're describing here is open and honest communication all the time. Did you face any challenges when you started being very strict about this communication? And strict in a good way. I mean, like we're going to communicate well and honestly, and you strike me as the type of person who has been this way your entire life. But I mean, moving that to your client base can be hard. Did you
Mm.
see any challenges there?
I think the challenges are more, when you have a culture and a value system with your team, if you ever
Mm,
vary away from that and try and break the rules, you can be held accountable quite easily. So, I touched
yes.
on it earlier. I wanted to help people. And
Yeah.
that's still probably the strongest core value that sits with me. And then
Mm,
that often means sometimes you get somebody who comes along that doesn't fit the model. And,
yeah.
maybe they didn't answer all the questions or their business doesn't fit. And I've been the one who's probably been the most guilty in the business of going, cool, yeah, I'm going to onboard them because I want to help them.
Yeah.
And year on year, I learn the hard way. Every time I break the rules and do something that I shouldn't, it falls apart and I end up living to
Mm,
regret it. And the team turn around and are more than within their right to say, Jace, we told you so. There's a reason why the rules exist. So I'd say it's more around my own actions than anything else. But I think that's the thing you can rely on if you're really clear on the communication up front around how you work and what your expectations are with the clients. We generally don't then bump into trouble down the track. And if the client doesn't work the way we want them to, when we do send them an exit letter, which we've probably exited more clients this year than we ever have before, because we're at that
Mm.
point where it's, well, hang on, if we have less clients, we can do deeper work with the clients that do want to work with us.
Yeah.
So if we've been constantly calling or emailing or texting a client to say we need your work, if there's a problem, let us know. We've got to do this lodgement because we're bound by due dates. We've got things on behalf of the government that we have to do, and we're not doing it because we're the bad guy. We're doing it because we're trying to help. And
Yeah.
if the communication's not there, it gets to a point where the team will draft up an exit letter, beautifully worded, and just say, hey, unfortunately, we can't work together anymore because I remember back at the start, we said these were the rules that we needed to abide by, and one of them is communication. Unfortunately, the communication's broken down. We can no longer do our job. Unfortunately, we're going to terminate our relationship. But
Mm.
because you had the conversation up front, it's not a surprise. There's no
Yes.
argument to come back. It's just, what, that's fair. Future Advisory told me on day one when I started that communication was one of the number one principles we had to abide by. I haven't responded to an email for a month and they've let me go.
Yeah.
I can't argue. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just putting things in place to make it super clear, and that just eliminates anything that's up for discussion or argument down the track if it wasn't clear at the start.
Mm. No, being upfront makes complete sense. We can't do your tax if we don't have your receipts.
Yeah, 100%.
Is what it is. What do you want us to do? So that makes, I like that. It's always difficult actually getting that relationship going at the start because it can seem very harsh in the beginning. But humans react better when you know what's going on. No one likes operating under uncertainty. And if you say these are the house rules, this is how it works, and no one abides by the rules, then you can let them go, and there's absolutely no harm in it. So, and it's, I mean,
100%.
streamlines your business as well. As you said, you can then help the people who actually want to be helped, which is great, and which is what you're trying to do. So excellent. What do we
Yeah.
say to people when the account, or well, to accountants rather, because I've heard this a few times, when accountants think that their clients don't want any more, they don't need any more. How do you show that value to clients, the value that they didn't even know they wanted or needed?
Yeah, I think again, communication. I mean, that word will always come up. It's
It's a
one
good
thing that
word.
I'm very very strong on. But clients don't know what they're missing out on. And I
Mm,
think, even when they say, I don't want more, or I don't need more, there's
mm,
always a way to open up that conversation. And it might be benchmarks. Let's say they're a plumber and they're making 5% when everyone else in the industry is making 20%. They say, I don't want more, I don't need more. But it can be a conversation that is really like innocent and easy to come across. Just say, hey, look, I've checked out your margins, and I think maybe there's a problem with the hourly rate you're charging for your plumbers. I've looked at benchmarks and across the industry, this is the standard hourly rate. And I noticed on your invoices, your hourly rate is this. Do you reckon we should
mm.
have a meeting to talk about, your business plan or your charge out rates? And all of a sudden, the client that thought they didn't want more actually then gets their brain going, well, hang on a minute. And then it can be something like, I think we did a mock up on one of the numbers game episodes, and it was like, if that plumber with a team of however many people they had charged $10 more per hour, there would be an extra $200,000 profit on the bottom line in 12 months. So then, you imagine when you're talking about showing them value, a client who goes, I don't want more, but it's like, well, what if I could find a way to get 200,000 more revenue or more profit on your bottom
Profit.
line a year from now? Would that be worth investing in monthly reporting and coaching from our team? You know,
Yes.
let's call it $2,000 a month. You're going to invest $24,000, but I think I can find you 200,000 profit. Should we do it? Like, when you can guide conversations like that and backed
Mm.
by numbers, like, I mean, that's
Yes,
a,
yes,
that's the
yes.
thing. I think accountants and bookkeepers have this, real big leg up. And there's a lot of people in the industry that talk about, business coaches, and we see
Mm.
our clients spending all this money on business coaches, and a good business coach is worth their weight in gold. But
Mm.
I think the people that are most armed with the most unique and great information are accountants and bookkeepers, to be able to level up their advice and advisory into that business coach style space,
Mm.
where, because we know the numbers and we know the client so well, it's that type of conversation to go, based on benchmarks, your business could be making this. Should we work
Mm.
together to unpack your margins, your expenses, your charge out rates? And it's more about showing them what's possible. Maybe they don't
Mm.
want more because they don't know what more means. But if you show them the value in what's possible, that example we used, extra 200,000 profit, oh, that's high value. And again,
Yeah.
if you know what drives the client, maybe it's not about profit, but maybe it's about succession planning. What if we got a general manager in to do that job that you're doing so you can have more time with your family and you can actually take the holiday this year? Geez, Jace, I haven't had a holiday for so many years. I'd love a holiday. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean that understanding of what is value to the client becomes important for how you show them the value. But that's a bit of an example.
Yeah. I love the example. I mean, the numbers don't lie. And as you were
Correct.
saying, the 200,000 on the bottom line, I was thinking you can buy a lot of your accountant's hours with $200,000.
Yeah,
There's time
100%.
to, it's probably worth the investment. Your return on investment is going to be very decent. I mean, speaking of the return on investment, now we're getting them to pay us. How do you structure pricing? Do you have any pro tips for that? How do you manage it? Because that can be a very tricky discussion. You
Hmm.
want to ensure that you're profitable, but you also can't have some clients where you're making a 5% gross profit margin and on the others 95%. It needs to also sort of be fair and check out.
Yeah. Uh, I wish there was a magic bullet for pricing or a
Never
magic
is the
solution. Never is. Look, anyone's going to say if you can value base your pricing, of course,
mm,
that's the dream outcome. That example of, get the client $200,000 extra profit,
mm,
why shouldn't it be worth 50,000?
mm,
The
mm,
firm makes 50, the client still has 150,000 profit left over. But what
mm,
if we only did 2 hours a month work?
mm,
Value-based pricing.
mm,
I think as accountants and bookkeepers, our default is to go to an hourly rate to work it out first. But I think, we really need to work out and understand what is the value of the hourly rate that we're worth.
mm,
And then whatever you calculate, double it because I can guarantee you're worth more than what you think you're worth. And I've seen prices that other accounting firms are charging and bookkeepers are charging, and I just look at the work they're doing and go, geez, this is quality work. It was worth so much more than that. So I think as an entire profession and industry, we're guilty of not charging enough for what we do.
mm,
So it is starting. I mean, and as I said, the default is to work out hourly. I'm going to do this many hours of a particular task, or the minimum price for a set of financials is this. Every year you need to review your prices. Every year you should survey a few other local businesses and work out to make sure that you are, not the cheapest or but you don't want to be the cheap person on the street, and just winning anyone's work. You, as I said, work out who you work well with, niche your services, have great pricing structure, and then once you set minimums, like let's say the minimum compliance package to come on board might be $800 a month. Now,
mm,
whether that business is this big or that big, the minimum is 800 a month. And
mm,
once you've got your minimum, regardless of how many hours you're spending on it, you can then continue to build on. But what are the other
mm,
services that we add on? The light advisory, which might be an automatically generated management report with a 15-minute phone call. Cool. Put a price on that. And it doesn't have to be about hours because that 15-minute phone call might be the game changer that changes their business for something that never would have knew or understood before.
mm,
So
mm,
yeah, I think testing it out is also the big thing as well. Like for so long, every proposal we sent was accepted, and all that was saying to me was that we weren't pricing our
yeah,
services, on the barrier where somebody had to stop and go, hey, can you just explain how,
mm,
why it's that price? Or, if we're not uncomfortable and the client's not uncomfortable, it's obviously, we're sending things that are just they're vanilla, they're easy going, it's easy to
yeah,
accept. And I think, we're still at a point where most of our proposals get accepted. So you've got to test the boundaries as well. And pricing is that thing where if you've built a product, you've built a system and process, you've got to remember that you've put years into building a business
mm,
and learning how to use Zero and Sift and all the
mm,
tools.
mm,
And if you can do something in an hour that would take somebody 10 hours to do because they don't have your skills, why
yeah,
shouldn't you price that at closer to 10 hours worth of your time or the value that it would take? So,
mm,
yeah, it's a hard answer on pricing, but I think whatever you think you're going to charge more because you are worth it and you are bringing exceptional value to your small business clients.
mm. I love that answer. I completely agree with it. When people do this hourly rate thing, I'm just like, you're not a factory worker. That is not what you're doing. You don't get paid an hourly wage. This is
Mm.
not where your value add sits. And I completely agree with letting people pay for 10 hours worth of work. If it is 10 hours worth of work, it doesn't matter how long you take to complete it. If you're
Mm,
faster, you shouldn't be getting paid less just because you're better at your job. That doesn't make
yeah.
any sense. So
Correct. And
that,
that's always been the hardest one to understand is, if you charge at an hourly rate and you're really good, you get penalized. You're penalized with
literally,
less billables because you're really efficient and fast at your job. So yeah, for those people that have been doing it a long time, you're fast and efficient, find a better way than hourly rate, or just increase your hourly rate to match your skills.
yeah.
For a lot of bookkeeping, for example, even just the rebrand, I think bookkeeping, the managed finance function,
Mm.
you're managing the finances of a client, you're keeping everything in order. Managed finance sounds something sexy that I could charge $300 an hour for compared to 150.
Yeah.
And for a client that goes, oh, my managed finance team, my finance function have sorted out all my bills and paid my payables and brought in my receivables and my files completely reconciled, and then I was sent a management report.
Yeah.
Cool. That's still stuff that a bookkeeper could do at 150 an hour. But if you brand it and market yourself as a high-end finance function, your hourly rate sounds like it should be a lot more.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's different ways to cut it, but yeah, hopefully it inspires or sparks some thought on how to up the value proposition that our profession is bringing.
Oh, I love that. I'm sure it will. I think you're giving us lots to think about. So that's always important, right? We like learning. So
Yeah, so do I. That's why I do these things. I often learn quite a lot as I go, and yeah, it's always an opportunity to connect and meet with other small business owners when we do these things. So yeah, always open.
yeah, excellent. And then to just wrap up, because I've had such a lovely discussion, but we need to also get on with our days, right?
Of course.
Some rapid fire questions, which is my favorite section of this podcast, just because I get to have so many new recommendations. I
Mhm.
have an entire reading list based on this. But tell us what your favorite software is, obviously, besides Sift, something that you cannot live without.
As a small business owner running an accounting firm, for me, Dashboard Insights is another big one. So just running that data from Zero and Zero Practice Manager into some nice, neat KPI dashboards for my team. Got a great team that are motivated and firing. So yeah, we do like to be able to see the data on those kind of singular KPI dashboard screens in a nice, neat way.
Hmm. And then the last book you've read, or the book you're currently busy reading, what are you reading at the moment?
Yeah. So the nerd in me is reading the Robert Galbraith series for Cormoran Strike. So the new book was just brought out. So if anyone who hasn't come across that, they're a great series of books. I've put a few accountants onto it. So Katie Bryan and Kate Slater are guilty of having read the Cormoran Strike series off that. But my favorite book of all time, I was just looking at it before, is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I love the Nike story.
Like one
Big
more.
fan. Favorite
Yeah.
podcast is the Numbers Game podcast. Just throw that
It's
in
one of
there.
my favorites too.
Good to know.
You're
Good to
allowed to
know.
say that. I actually listened to your podcast when I was still working for an Australian firm. So when
There you
Alex,
go. Thank you.
yeah, when Alex told us that we are actually meeting with you and we're having you on a webinar, I was like, what? But I know this guy. I'm so
Awesome. No,
confused
great to
then.
hear. No, thank you for being one
Yeah.
of our four listeners. No, I'm just kidding.
Such an honor, 25%.
Uh, look at us go.
What is the most valuable lesson you've learned about building a business?
Oh, I don't know if valuable, but it's hard. I think, and what I'll then lead into, it is really hard. And I think for anyone who's going it alone,
Mm,
having a great advisor, I'm still working with my Macca's crew trainer from 18, what did I say, 24 years ago. Yeah,
mm,
24 years ago. Geez, I'm getting old. Having someone you can talk to, I think, because business is so hard, one of
mm,
the biggest things that I've learned, or the valuable lesson I've learned, is for a long time we went it alone. And,
mm,
there's only so many things and only so many hats you can wear. And even as an accountant and a business owner, you don't have to have all the skill sets of every area. At a team approaching 30, it took until nearly 30 before we hired a HR specialist because we
mm,
tried to do it all ourselves.
mm,
We brought on some business advisors or coaches of our own later on in
mm,
business, but maybe if we'd done that sooner, we might have, got further ahead and been more successful in certain areas. So yeah, business is tough. You don't need to go it alone. And even if you're an accountant or bookkeeper, it doesn't mean you can't find some people in your community or network or peers in your network to go and meet with. And I think outside of having a business coach and an advisor and a business partner, I do spend a lot of time with other accounting firm owners. And it is some of the best time that I'll spend. Even this week, I'm in group chats with about 5, 6, 7, 8 different firm owners, and they're talking about robotic process automation and AI agents and how they're changing their firm by automating tasks. And my brain's ticking on, oh, we haven't done that. We should try that as well. So you need to get into those spaces. If you're building a business, that's a great lesson. And if you don't have great connections with people, find yourself a group chat you can get into with some great people, hire a coach, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to always chat and send you in the right direction.
It's a good advice. I used to work for a partner who used to say, if you fly alone, you die alone. And it's the same concept, right? Leverage the community because it does exist. It is there.
Yeah, 100%. And this community is one of the best, especially the Xero and now SIF community. Everyone's so awesome. Like just off the back of Xerocon a few weeks ago, speaking with Jodely on stage for the SIF presentation, and we got off stage and we were mobbed by 20, 30 firm owners that wanted to come over and have a chat. And it is because you give out good energy, you want to help each other. And there's so many, you look around at all the conversations there and go, geez, like this is a good space. It's a safe space.
And that's all we need as humans, right? A safe space. Full circle on our discussion. And then just to wrap up, my last question. If there is only one thing, the main key idea or key takeaway that listeners need to take away today, what would that be?
You are valuable and you are worth more. So don't be afraid to charge what you are worth. You've put a considerable amount of time, energy, and effort into building a business or building a skill set in this profession. Don't be afraid to charge the appropriate price, and just dip your toe into something different that you may not have charged for or done before, and you won't regret it. You won't look back.
And I don't think anyone could have said it any better. Thank you so much, Jason. It was lovely having you. Always nice chatting with you. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again in the future.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast. Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now. And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast. That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.